In this video, I'm going to go over how to use the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator. It is one of the basic ways to lay down vector paths in Illustrator and ultimately a great tool to know how to use. So the pen tool is the third tool down, and the way this tool works is you click and let go and that drops a vector point. You click and let go and that drops another point. And in this way you can make basic shapes with corner points. And note when I try to close it, I see a little O around the pen, and that tells me I'm going to close a shape. Now if I want to have curved lines, what I do is first let me click and let go, and click and let go. And then what I'll have is when I want to curve, I will click and hold the vector point, and then this will drag out what are called Bezier handles. And this will determine the direction and amount of the curve. So the longer the handles are, the longer the curve is. Right, so we can see the curve getting bigger, and then the shorter the handles, the less of a curve there is. Now, the direction of the handles also determine the direction of the curve, and when I let go, I will then see the line come in, and then I'll see the preview of the next curve. And note that this handle right here is determining the curve of the next portion of the line. And again, now I can close the shape, and now I have a shape with curves in it. Now I don't necessarily need to have a complete shape. I can just make a vector line that doesn't close, but to get off the pen tool and stop the shape making, I either have to press escape on my keyboard or switch off to a different tool. Now once I have made a vector shape or a vector path, or even in the process of making it, I can come over to the right-hand side of Illustrator under the Properties panel and change the stroke color and the stroke width. And then this is more so for a shape. With a shape, I can also change the fill color. And the Properties panel will change a little bit depending on what tool you have selected or what shape you have selected, but generally speaking you will see these appearance options. And if you don't see anything here, you can always go to Window and Workspace and go to Essentials and reset Essentials, or if you're looking for something and you know what you're looking for, like Appearance, you can go and choose the exact panel here. So you see the Appearance option here. Now, oftentimes you might want to use the pen tool to trace an image or a sketch that you have made. And to do this, you will first want to get that sketch into Illustrator or that image into Illustrator and then use it as a traceable object. So to get it in, what I like to do is I like to go to File and Place, and then I have to know where the image is that I want to use. In this case, my image is going to be in Downloads, and I am going to trace an apple. All right, but you can take an image on your phone or something else and then email it to yourself or AirDrop it to the computer and then open it in Illustrator there. Now, in this case, this apple's a little bit bigger, so I want to make it smaller, but know when I make it smaller, I can make it strange dimensions. So when I grab a corner to make it smaller, I want to hold my Shift key so that I maintain the proper aspect ratio. I'm going to go ahead and center this, and now I'm going to go ahead and start tracing this. Right? But when I trace this, I'm going to want to do a couple of things. I'm going to want to look at my Layers panel, and generally speaking, layers are not as important in Illustrator, but I am going to want to make a new layer so that I can simply hide my reference layer once I have finished it. Now I can grab my pen tool, and I'm going to start at a corner point. And then when I'm tracing this, I'm going to have mostly curved points. And when I'm drawing these curves, I want to try to have as few points as possible. And I want to try to have the handles always go in the direction that I'm going to want my next curve point to go in. Right, and that usually means you're going to be parallel to the edge of the apple. You're not going to have the handles crossing through what you want to trace because that's going to give you a curve in a direction that you don't want to go. And if you get something a little bit off, you can always come in after the fact and fix it. Now I'm just going to trace the fruit itself here and leave the stem and the leaf for a little bit later, because what I can do here, now that I have this on my separate layer, is I can go to my properties panel. I can change the stroke. In this case, I don't want to stroke at all, so I'm going to choose the first option, which is a white square with a red line through it. And then I'm going to come back here and click off of it, and this does look pretty good. Now, what I might want to do is I might want to change some of this a little bit, like maybe I want to pull this area out a little bit, and how I can do that is I can go to my direct selection tool, and then I can click on a specific point and I can move its handle out, or I can simply move the entire point a little bit to change the shape slightly and give more of a curve here and less of a sharp point. So I have that, and that is great. Now I can trace the other two parts, and I'm tracing them separately just because that's what makes sense here. So I'm going to open up layer 2 and simply hide the fruit body path. Come back to my pen tool. I'll go ahead and I'll trace the stem first because that'll go pretty quickly. Okay. Close that off, and I'm going to come to properties and change that fill color, and then go back to layers. And now when I go back to layers, I notice I accidentally made this stem on the wrong layer. So I can simply drag this path and move it up into layer 2, and then I can continue on and trace out the leaf. Now sometimes when you're tracing out, you might run into an issue where the fill is kind of blocking off your ability to see, or you're having trouble, and you might need to zoom in. And when you're in the middle of a path operation, the easiest way to zoom in is to press Command and plus on your keyboard, or if you're on a PC, Control and plus. Now this fill is blocking the point. So in this case, I can probably just estimate it that it's about here. But if I really can't see what I'm trying to trace, I can go to Properties, and I can knock out the fill while I do this, which will allow me to trace this really easily. And then when I close the shape, I'll want to make sure to go back and change the fill to a different color. And so now I have slightly funky colors. I have an apple that's traced out, and to zoom back out to really see everything, I can press Command and minus, or Control and minus on a PC, and then I can hide the apple image itself, and I have my apple graphic right here made using the pen tool.